I'd like to actually just show you a nifty little tip on taking words, which you can take from whatever the children write, and turn them into rhythms to help engage them. So a colleague of mine created a cool beat, and it goes like this: bread, cheese, don't forget meat. And it goes bread, cheese, don't forget meat, bread, cheese, don't forget meat. You can use your shaker if you don't want to play the rhythm, or just say bread, cheese, don't forget meat. If you're veggie, I want veggies to eat. I want veggies to eat. Or you can make up something else. White fox chili cheese fries. White fox chili cheese fries. That was something else somebody came up with. So bread, cheese, don't forget meat. Bread, cheese, don't forget meat. Bread, cheese, don't forget meat. 30 more seconds. Bread, cheese, don't forget meat. 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 I said bread, cheese, don't forget meat. 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 And bread, cheese, don't forget meat. Okay. So what we do at UCLArts Healing is actually we take tools from the world of therapy and we integrate them with tools from the world of the arts to enhance the innate social emotional benefits of the arts. And we call this work social emotional arts. So connection is a necessary first step for a positive interaction with any child or teen, especially one that has endured traumatic circumstances such as abuse or neglect. Disconnection is central to trauma, loneliness, intolerance, and social distancing. And the goal of our expressive writing activities today is actually to enable students to be seen, heard, and connected. The language of non-judgment, very quickly, is central to facilitating connection. I see, I notice, I wonder is a framework that we use that is helpful. It is not the only way to do this. However, we're going to have a chance to practice using this framework today when we do some sharing with each other. We literally point out what we see or notice without any judgment. For example, I noticed that you wrote about meeting your dog. I wonder if you can tell me more about that. I wonder is a way of offering an inquiry that doesn't sound intrusive. Or I see a smile. I wonder how you're feeling, instead of saying, you look happy, right? I noticed you tried some extra haiku examples. So we always want to reinforce and notice positive behavior to reinforce. Okay. So even positive judgments like good job, that's pretty, I like it, can induce anxiety, self-judgment, disconnection, and seeking of external validation. This can stifle creativity, self-expression, and self-esteem. So we want to be as non-judgmental as possible. A few simple guidelines about writing. We can always write or scribe for students as needed, or have students help each other scribe what they would like to write. Some people flow better verbally as well, and then they can hear back what they have spoken. Poetry does not need to rhyme. You can think of it very simplistically as prose broken up into lines for effect. We know that's not all that poetry is. Poetry consists of imagery and similes and metaphors. However, you can think of it very simply as prose broken up into lines for effect. So to take away the sense of pressure about how we are going to write a poem. Participants will write what they need to write, and there's no wrong way to express yourself creatively. Other than whatever classroom rules you have of respectfulness, for example. So we're not going to worry about a right way of writing, and it's important to remind your participants that there's no wrong way so that they don't worry about what they do. Poetry is a great way to introduce conversation about sensitive subjects. There is actually an oncologist back east named Rafael Campos who puts poetry in packets of his patients and asks them to circle things that stand out to them to facilitate conversation about sensitive subjects. So we're going to do a simple little warm-up to show how easy it is to write. think of something that you have seen in the last 24 hours, and you can put it in the chat bar. And if, for example, you saw a cat, say just a little more than that. I saw a gray cat sitting in the sun or something, just a little detail that would help us visualize what you saw. And just write one thing that you saw in the last 24 hours and stick it in the chat bar. I saw black crow in the trees, right? Brown squirrel digging in my yard. My 2-year-old in Halloween leggings. I just put 3 of those images together, and that's a poem. It's that simple, that simple. So, have any of you have ever written a haiku-like poem? Raise your hand if you have. Okay, some of you. A haiku is an ancient form of Japanese poetry of 3 lines and 17 syllables that uses 2 images in nature and then surprises us with a connection between the 2. So this in the 17th century, Grandmaster Basho elevated what was called the haiku at that time to a high art form. Now, later the subject matter was expanded and it remained the art of expressing much and suggesting more in the fewest possible words. And therein lies the power of the haiku, because it can help us contain overwhelming feelings for which words can be difficult to find. And this is why poetry springs up in times of distress, as in 9/11. It is the opposite of a containing activity like haiku is a blank page and stream of consciousness writing that has very little structure to it. So today we are not going to worry about counting syllables. We're just going to write short little snippets of things. I need a volunteer to read this poem by Basho. And this is part of the process, by the way. It's not that I am unable to read this myself. However, teaching you the process of how we begin working with poetry for children. So actually, in the interest of time, I'll read this one, and then when we have some longer poems later, I'll have volunteers. So Basho wrote, "I am the one who eats breakfast gazing at morning glories." A teacher in the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District actually sent me, she has an elementary age special education teacher, and she sent me a poem written by one of the kids on the autism spectrum, and this child wrote, "I am the one who plays on my iPad, bees making honey." So the prompt is, the instruction is to write a line that begins with, "I am the one who," so that'll be your first line. The second line is something you do every day. So think of something you do every day. And the third line is something that you've seen in nature or not in nature. It could be something you've seen anywhere. And the third line doesn't necessarily have to connect to the second one. It can, or it doesn't need to. It's the art of suggesting relationships. So go ahead and take a minute to just try one of these, or write more than one if you wish, and we'll see what happens. Do I have a volunteer, somebody who would like to unmute themselves for a moment and read what they wrote? There's no pressure here. We never require it.
I'd like to read mine.
Thank you.
I am the one who sits in shadows, speaking lessons into a black screen, courting my students' minds.
Thank you. And this is how we're going to use our shakers or our tissues. If you have a shaker or a tissue, we're going to acknowledge Mark, I believe that's your name.
Yes.
We're going to acknowledge what Mark has just shared, right? So the tissues enable him to see it, and the shaker enables him to hear it. Okay. So thank you. Do I have anyone else who would like to share? Yes, Barbara.
I am the one who sips teacup after cup in the morning marine layer.
Thank you. All right, let's acknowledge Barbara's sharing. Okay. All right, anyone else with a burning desire to share what they wrote? Yes, Rosemarie.
Okay. I'm the one who pops out of bed every morning. I see opinions.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. All right. I saw another hand up and I accidentally clicked. Was it Kathy?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did, yes, okay. I am the one who does the dirty dishes, wishing I was out in the garden.
Okay, thank you. I think I could have written that one. Okay. All right. Okay, wonderful. And I see Lizette's hand up.
Let's see. I am the one who zooms throughout the day as a butterfly flies around my lemon tree.
Thank you. Is anyone else noticing we have some common threads here?